Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. Tonight is Saturday night, January 4th. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday, be it Christmas or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you choose. I hope you guys had a great holiday. I hope you had a very nice New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I'm not much of a New Year's Eve person. I think my Dodger friends will appreciate this. I was told if I start watching Game 5 of the World Series on YouTube at 9:22 at midnight, the Dodgers would win the World Series. I started 7 minutes early. There was commercials. I finished a few minutes before midnight, but it was still a fun way to celebrate the end of 2024. I think that the Dodgers winning the World Series was probably the highlight of my 2024. Um, Definitely had its ups and downs. You guys probably already know about the lows. Hopefully, don't have to do that again and for another 15 or 20 years. But hoping that 2025 is better for all of us, including just myself and all of you out there. Hopefully, it's a good year for all of you, personally, health wise, business career wise, collecting wise. I hope 2025 is a spectacular year for all of you. So I started my 2025 collecting escapades this morning or this afternoon. There was a small local show put on by this company that I brought in the past called The Regional. They had a show at the Westminster, which is Westminster, California, Westminster Boys and Girls Club. And since it's only a 10 or 15-minute drive and it's a free show with free parking, I thought, what the heck? I went last month and there were two or three half decent vintage sellers, guys who were selling like 60s and 70s commons. Um, Unfortunately, they chose not to come today, and this show lasted all of 10 or 15 minutes for me. Um, the Boys and Girls Club is a small show. It's in two rooms. One of the rooms, the larger room, is kind of like some type of junior high school gymnasium. It's like a basketball court. And then the other room they opened up is kind of like the teacher's lounge or somebody's lounge. And they stick in as many tables and as many sellers as possible. To their credit, this place is packed with sellers, packed with people. When I walked in, I immediately said, God, I should have worn a mask. It was just so busy. Um, Unfortunately for me, there was a lot of Pokemon and there was a lot of modern stuff. Yes, there was a couple, I did see a 52 toss Mickey Mantle, authentic altered. I saw like a 54 Willie Mays, a tops. But I'm one of those that if I had like, let's be honest, I'm not going to buy the 52 toss Mantle card. So I'm not even going to engage in a conversation. How much is this card? And those type of things. I'm just not one of those people. And the environment was really tight for me. It was just too many people in too small of a room. Once I realized that the sellers that I saw a few weeks ago weren't there, I decided let's cut out of here. I was over there for 10 or 15 minutes. Went to one of my LCSs, Baseball Cards Plus, over in Huntington Beach. Unfortunately, everything was just too expensive over there. Uh, when you go to an LCS, everything's jacked up to retail. So checked that out. Nothing there. Grabbed some lunch, came home, and luckily there was a package from me from the batter's box out of Tumble, Texas, who I talk to you guys about probably once a month at this rate. They had a 15%, one of their infamous 15% off sales. And I got some good stuff, some 1950 Bowmans, some 1961 high numbers. I'll probably show those to you in a future video. But normally in 2025 or at the beginning of the year, we talk about our goals. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to. I don't have any goals. just because I know I won't keep them. I mean, there are things, yeah, I want to finish the 50 Bowman set, hopefully finish my 61 tops high numbers. But there's nothing too elaborate this year. I'm going to keep this video in case I need it December of 2025 just to see how things change because I don't expect this to be that huge of a year for me. We'll see. We're about 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away from the Burbank show out in Ontario, or the what's now called the West Coast Card Show, powered by Burbank Sports Cards. That's in several weeks, along with the Long Beach show. I think there's a Pasadena show coming up. There's just a lot of little shows coming up, so we'll see. I don't have big plans as of yet for this year, but obviously if those change, I'm going to let you guys know. So I'm going to keep my diatribe short. Unfortunately, my technical skills stink. I have kind of a new setup that I'm learning how to use here at home. I was going to share, this show was going to open with Vin Scully announcing Rickey Henderson's last stolen base when he played for the Dodgers. But I just couldn't, I forgot how to download another YouTube's, MLB has a YouTube video, and I was going to download it and add it to my video. It got too complicated. I forgot how to do it. I did it once ages ago. So I'm not including that. So you're going to hear me talk at the end because I already recorded the cards I'm going to show you. I already recorded at the end. I made a mention of the Rickey Henderson video you saw earlier. Doesn't exist. So there's my disclaimer. But today what we're going to do is I am going to show you in honor of Rickey Henderson, sadly passing away. And I had planned this actually before he passed away. But now it's only fitting that I show it. And that's going to be, I'm going to show you my 1980 top set. And I think I already mentioned it when you see the cards, but 1980 is the last vintage, what I consider the last vintage set. It was the last set Topps created when they still had a monopoly. In 1981, Donruss and Fleer showed up and changed the baseball card landscape for a while, or forever, because then guys like Score and Upper Deck, a bunch of other companies came and ruined everything. But 1980 was my last collection as a child, in my childhood collection, and it was also the first year that we had Rickey Henderson. So it's kind of fitting that I show off my 1980 top set along with the very first Rickey Henderson card. So stick around, and we're going to look at some baseball cards, you guys. All right, so what we're going to do is look at the 1980 top set. I am trying out a new tripod lighting system. That's why you see this background. It's a little different just because I saw it was taking up some space. So just giving this a go. So this is still a work in progress. But let's take a look at 1980. Now, I honestly call this the last vintage set. People will say different. There's 726 cards. And the reason I call this the last vintage set is because in 1981, Donruss and Fleer would appear on the scene, and they would be making baseball cards. And everything seemed to change after 1980. Now, one of the things I want to point out here is this card, Steve Braun. Steve Braun and a couple of other cards, notably Fred Stanley, the shortstop for the New York Yankees. There is a variation out there where their names are in yellow. I've never seen them before, and according to a PSA article I read from 2008, these cards were in very high, they're very hard to find, and when they do, they seem to fetch a pretty penny. So I wanted to just point that out to you. We start out with our 1979 highlights. You see Willie McCovey, Manny Mota, Pete Rose. By this point, these guys are now the veterans. These guys are the old guys. And while this does mark the first card for Rickey Henderson, it's the last card for Willie McCovey. But you'll notice, and it's funny, I just noticed this Luis Tiant on the Yankees. Good quality pictures. I tend to like this set a lot. Carlton Fisk, I think that he's got one more Red Sox card left in 81, I believe. Frank White on the All-Stars, American League All-Star. Rick Miller, I remember him on the Red Sox and on the Angels. Joe Ferguson. By this point, I was 15 years old, and I was starting to see some of my heroes that I grew up watching retire or leave the Dodgers after these next couple of years. There was Doyle Alexander. He actually started on the Dodgers, traded to the Orioles in the Frank Robinson deal. Gary Carter. So just going through these, some other facts, as I said, 726 cards. I believe this is 6 series. The one main, there's Ted Simmons, now a Hall of Famer. The main rookie card is Rickey Henderson, of which I have graded and ungraded. Bob Horner. This guy was a good player for a few years. I used to work at a baseball card store as a child, and this was the owner's favorite player. Thought he was going to the Hall. Fred Lynn, I thought he was going to the Hall. We all have these players that were really good that just didn't end up getting in the Hall of Fame. Doc Ellis on the Mets, right there. That's pretty good. Sammy Stewart of the Orioles. I have not, I'll be honest with you guys, I have not looked at this set in years. Tony Perez on the Expos. That's probably why I'm stopping every page, just because I haven't looked at some of these cards in a while. This set I originally bought in 1980. Some friends of mine bought a vending box or vending case, 12,000 cards. And with that, what they did was they created sets out of those 12,000 cards. And they sold me a set. I think I paid $10 for it. I don't know if they made money, but that's how I acquired the 1980 set. Eventually, I would sell it, or I don't know what I did with my original cards. And I was, when I got back into collecting, Eddie Murray. These would be this set, I think I paid maybe $50 or $60. I didn't build it. The late 80s sets, I know 1980 I did not build. I might have built 78. But I always liked this set. You know, there'll be some people that are like, yeah, you know, these cards aren't that nice. Like that Buddy Bell card I like. I like the pose. I like the shadows. Mike Easler, Dave Goltz. These are just guys I watched on TV every week. Then we get to the league leader cards. And it's interesting, whenever you look at league leader cards, it doesn't matter what year it is. You see either a Hall of Famer or a guy that was really, really great for several years. And it's just nice to look at. You see guys like Don Baylor, Tate Kingman, Willie Wilson. They did not make the Hall, but in their day, they were really good players. Ron Guidry. Every so often, but I notice it more with 60s cards. You'll see a league leaders card, and I'll say, who's that? I don't do that with the 70s or the 80s cards. Steve Carlton, National League All-Star. So back then, they put the All-Stars way up there, that they made the All-Star team. Big Ed Halicki. Giants fans would remember that guy. Len Barker. When I was a kid, he threw a perfect game, and that was a big deal back then. We hadn't had one in a while. Andre Dawson, Scotty McGregor. It's a nice set to look at. Phil Niekro, still on the Braves. He's been on the Braves for about 15 or 16 years before he started doing his tour, like with the Yankees and the Indians. Jim Cott on the Yankees, I forgot about that. Dusty Baker. Al Oliver, no longer on the Pirates, now on the Rangers. He would start moving around in the 80s too. What we start seeing now is free agency has taken full effect, and players, as you see Mike Schmidt, players are now jumping from team to team. Guys like Ralph Garr, who won a batting title with the Braves in the National League, are now in the American League. Jerry Koosman was now on the Twins. So you start seeing these, just looking at cards. Gaylord Perry's on the Padres. I think that might be his third team by then. He'd already played on the Giants and the Indians. You could call that out really easily. I used to love this Steve Garvey card, still do. For some reason, I really like. They took a lot of batting practice photos, and for some reason, I really found myself liking those. Mike Edwards, second baseman. Ron Guidry. That's a nice Ron Guidry card there. And as we keep looking here, Steve Kemp, He grew up in the town next to me. Dave Parker, now a Hall of Famer. But just some nice cards from that era. The uniforms are getting a little bit more colorful. Look at the Pirates back then. Rickey Henderson, former Pirates, now on the Mets. And eventually he'd end up on the Phillies. Let's see, who else? Carney Lansford on the Angels. Worst trade the Angels did. One of the worst trades the Angels ever did. Traded him to the Red Sox. I think he might have been in the Fred Lynn deal. And he just didn't. Fred Lynn didn't have the great years that he did with the Red Sox. George Hendrick on the Cardinals. Wow. Gary Matthews, Sarge. Ray Burris. Bobby Mercer back on the Yankees by this point. Willie Mays Aikens. I remember him on the Angels. I thought he was going to be a superstar. It didn't pan out. Jack Morris. Gary Maddox, one of my favorite center fielders. Cubs offering their typical team picture, which are just faces as opposed to one team photo. Here's Fred Stanley. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a version with his name in yellow. I've never seen those cards before, but I'll be honest, I also don't look for them. Once I bought this set, even just a few years ago, I never really look at it or looked to ever upgrade it, or I just think it's a nice looking set to have. Like I said, it's the last 1980. It's the last of Topps being all on its own. Bobby Bonds now on the Indians. George Scott now on the Yankees. But it is fun to go through and look at some of these cards. The Yankees now were managed by Dick Hauser at this point. I have a feeling he wasn't the manager by the end of 1980. I'm pretty sure about that. Dwayne Kuiper, now San Francisco Giants announcer. I think he's been nominated for the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. I could be wrong there. Don Gullett now on the Yankees. I remember him on the Reds. Don Sutton's last card on the Dodgers. He'd be on the Astros the following season. George Brett All-Star card. One thing here, we do have action cards, but we still have a lot of poses, which is what I like. That's one of my complaints with today's cards, the modern cards. It seems like every card is an action shot. And I get it, but these poses are actually pretty nice too. So I kind of just wish they'd mix it up. Steve Busby, Bump Wills. Steve Busby threw 2 no-hitters in the 70s. I remember that guy. Buck Martinez later became a famous baseball announcer, went on to manage the Blue Jays for a bit. Bob Watson on the Red Sox. I don't remember that. There's Rickey Henderson. I bought this with the set. I eventually later bought a graded card, but that's my Rickey Henderson. A little off center. Those are hard to find centered. Mickey Rivers, now on the Rangers. He was on the Yankees, on the Angels before that. Tom Seaver. Never got used to him on the Reds. He'll always be a Met to me. Rennie Stennett. Bert Campaneris on the Angels. Ron Say, my favorite player. Oh, let's see. Ken Brett on the Dodgers. I forgot about that. Don Stanhouse. Oh, my God. Steve Rogers. A lot of mustaches. I see 1, 2. There's a beard. 3, 4. I see 4 mustaches just on this page. Let's see. Who's managing the Phillies? Dallas Green is. And we keep moving from checklist to checklist. I said 6 series. It could be 7 series because I noticed the numbers are different. Rudy May, Pete Rose, now in the Phillies. Ken Griffey Sr., I should say. Davey Lopes. Rick Manning, one of my favorite players growing up on the Indians. Roy Smalley. I just bought his dad's card, the 1950 Bowman. I bought that several months ago. It's funny to see that there he was on the Twins. I think he ends up on the Yankees eventually. I think everybody ended up on the Yankees at some point. Nolan Ryan. One of the things you're going to notice here when I'm looking at these cards is a lot of these cards are off-centered. And I think I passed him. Let's take a look. Card number 336. Oh, we got past it ages ago. Doc Medich. Supposedly his card's out of focus. It just wasn't a very good photo taken of him. But these cards are very hard to find centered. They seem to have just some type of cutting issue. But still, it's a good-looking set. Don Money. Oh, my God. Brian Downing. Reggie. Reggie's photos are all of him in action. And he's never playing the outfield, except for 1973. Willie Stargell. Richie Zisk, one of my favorite players growing up as well. That's one thing, you guys. I root for the Dodgers, but I like players from other teams. Just because I liked the way they played. You know, Larry Bowa was an intense guy. I didn't like him, but if he was on the Dodgers, I know I would have. John Candelaria, he threw a no-hitter against the Dodgers. Didn't like him, but then in the late 80s, early 90s, he showed up to pitch for the Dodgers. He still had some good stuff. Ed Kranepool's still around at this point. Roy White, that might be one of his last cards. No, I think he was still in the Yankees in 8. No, maybe not. I need a Yankee friend to speak up there. And then we go through, there's Rusty Staub. Oh my God. Then we go through the rookies. Off the top of my head, I don't know if anyone even remotely famous is on these. I'm trying to look at these as I'm talking to you guys. There's Mike Morgan. He'd have a long, illustrious career with about 10 different teams. But I don't see anyone. There's Jesse Orosco. I don't see anyone that really makes you go, oh my God, you know. Tim Flannery, he'd stick around for a while, but Steve Stone, the White Sox announcer, and the Cubs announcer. There's Tommy John, Reggie Smith, Oscar Gamble, Rod Carew. We're getting near the end. Now, one of the other reasons I wanted to show you guys this set is because, as I mentioned to you, this was the last set the Topps produced where it was just them. It was just a monopoly. And in 1980, I was very excited to buy this set. There was Carl Yastrzemski. I was told at a card show sometime in 1980 that the 1981 season would feature 3 different companies. There'd be Topps, there'd be Fleer, there'd be Donruss. And I remember being very excited. But I don't know what happened. By the end of 1980, this would be the last set I would ever work on as a child. I was 15 years old. And for some reason, by the time the 1981 season rolled around, I was no longer interested in collecting baseball cards. I was a sophomore in high school. I'm sure girls had entered the picture. I know that I would eventually start working because I wanted to buy my first car, which I would buy in 1982. But I spent part of 1981 working and saving up money. I wasn't even making $4 an hour. Minimum wage was $3.35. And I was saving up to buy a car. And like I said, there was girls, there was music. I was starting to buy records at this point. You know, I was really into Cheap Trick and Van Halen and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So it's interesting for me to look at these because this would be the last cards I would buy for my original collection. I would end up taking 7 years, I think a 6 or 7 year break. In 1987 or 1988, I walked into a baseball card store in Upland, California. I bought the 1987 Topps and Topps Update set, which was the dumbest thing I ever did. I actually still have those cards. I was 22 years old. I bought those cards. put them on a credit card. I think that those two sets cost me $50. Definitely not worth it today, but I gave them a little TLC a few years ago. Some of the cards were in bad PVC binder sleeves. I bought new sleeves for the set and a new binder. I had to pick up about 15 or 20 replacement cards. It's a good looking set. But this would mark the end of my collecting career for the very first time. And like I said, I took a 7-year break. And then in 1987, I told you I bought a set. A couple of years after that, I'd returned to the hobby, but I was buying hockey cards in the late 80s, early 90s, of which I still have some of those. At some point in the early 90s, I started building a 1973 set. And somewhere when eBay came out, so I will say the late 90s, is when I started buying Dodger cards again. But with no goal in mind. I was just buying Dodger cards randomly. So I'm gonna give you guys one more camera view because I want to talk about Rickey Henderson for a moment. So stick around. All right, so we were talking about Rickey Henderson earlier, and I showed you my 1980 set, but I do also have his rookie card graded in a PSA 5. And I bought this because after I built the set, I was buying ungraded cards, obviously because I was a set builder, and I started collecting graded cards because I wanted to put a display case on the wall. And Rickey Henderson was definitely one of the guys I wanted on there. He was a great leadoff batter. Obviously, we know about the stolen bases. We know about his base hits. He also hit for power. He was just a great ball player. And he was a great human specimen. He was really, he was a great physical body. So he played for a long time. And I was fortunate enough, and I'm hoping that this video will make it onto my YouTube video, as I am having some technical issues at the moment. But we always forget that Rickey Henderson played for the Dodgers. And this is his 2004. I think it's 2004. 2004 Topps update or Topps traded card. And Rickey Henderson played for a couple of months with the Dodgers. And so this, I believe, is his last card. And he had a great career primarily with the A's. But he played with the Yankees and the Padres and the Red Sox. He bounced around. But rest in peace, Rickey. Definitely a player that I admired growing up and even watching into my adulthood. All right, guys, if you stuck around this long, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a